Hello, and welcome to Fist of Firsts, the podcast where I try and find out what makes the funny people who make us laugh tick. I'm Tim Reed. I'm a TV sitcom writer, and I'll be asking some of our finest comedians and comedy writers a bunch of first-time questions to uncover the pivotal moments in their life, their career, and their creative process. I want to find out how the people who think differently think, so that we can all learn from the method behind their madness and be more creative. In this episode, I'm talking to multi-award-winning comedian, presenter, actor, author and scriptwriter Russell Kane. Russell is a regular on TV shows like The Apprentice You're Fired, Live at the Apollo, Steph's Packed Lunch and his own show, Evil Genius. Russell's also one of the finest and funniest stand-ups I've ever seen. And in the next hour, you'll hear just how insanely driven he is, how he works at a pace that would kill you or me, and how a drug-fueled fumble at a rave changed his life forever. Enjoy. Russell Kane, hello, how are you?
Good. I could pretend this is a day off, but it isn't. I'm due in Salisbury on stage, and it's a fucking 7:30 show.
No.
You wouldn't believe the difference that half an hour makes to my life. But it really does, because when you've got a 7:30 show, my tour manager wants to be there for a sound check by 5 o'clock, which means we've got to travel ahead of 4:30, which means we've got to travel ahead of a rush hour. Before you know, it's 1 p.m. for a relatively simple journey.
And so when you get to Salisbury, what do? You arrive at Salisbury, you walk in, talk me through the kind of why they're so early, what's the pre-match routine?
Traffic. Sometimes I get lucky and I was gigging in Milton Keynes, for example, where there's a direct train, or London, where I can jump in an Uber for 20 minutes at the end. I would rather get the train and my tour manager goes ahead of me so that I get more time at home. And then I will literally get there. If it's 7:30 doors, I'll try to walk in round about 7:15, that late. Just do a 1-2 and then chill in the dressing room. So minimum time at the theatre possible. But on days like this, where it's somewhere a bit awkward to get to, like Salisbury, by the time I pissed about getting a train to Basingstoke and it's a 40-minute taxi, I saved nothing. So I might as well get in the car with the TM.
I did wonder, and partly I was asking because I heard you talk recently about the stage energy. No matter whether you're doing 10 minutes or 90 minutes, you could only do one because you give it everything. And so I was kind of just wondering, does that affect the run up to it and saving the energy somehow before you get there and get going?
I don't think so. I think it's more about maximising my time at home with my creature comforts in my pants, watching Netflix or reading a book, and or even better, the dream of actually seeing my family for more than a nanosecond, like a zombie on the landing, which is what happened this morning. Because if I can hang out till 4:30, 5 at my house, I get to see my daughter when she comes in from school. It's basic self-care. And once you're in the dressing room, you can lay down and have a sleep and stuff, but you're limited. You're limited to what you can do.
Right, let's get in. I don't know if you've heard any, but I tend to, on the series one, I begin all of these with a quick fire firsts. So it's Fist of First, so I'm going to ask you, a range of first-time questions. But I've got a set of cards here with random first-timers on just to get us warmed up. Now, it didn't work at all in the first series, so I wasn't going to do it this time.
It'll work on me. I'll talk about shit.
But then I talked to Justin Morehouse, and at the end of the chat, he went, well, where have your cards gone? So he made me do it, and I turned over one. I think it was the first time you got really drunk, and he gave me the most amazing story. So I'm going to do it. I've got to do it. So
Justin and I did a gig. It was some summer gig where I was trying to keep my head straight and stay in shape. We were driving back, and he went, I just need to go to the bathroom, won't be a second. And he left me in the car, and he filled up with petrol, went to the bathroom. And 5 minutes went by, 10 minutes went by, and about 15 minutes went by. We'd gone into the toilet, and I went from, bloody hell, I'm going to make fun of him for having a massive shit, to, oh my God, he's
dead.
He's dead on the toilet because he's a large lad. He's right at the right age for a surprise heart attack. And I thought he's dead. He's gone. So I was just getting out of the car and he emerged. But what it was, he developed an upset tummy and been going through the eye of a needle for 5 minutes. But I'd already seen the chortle headline. I'd buried him. I'd dragged the shit-coloured body out. That's the last time I worked with Justin.
Yeah, because, of course, like me, mid-50s, I think he is. So we're in Sniper's Alley. This is the dangerous bit of a man's age, I think.
When a man in his mid-50s had a heart attack, no one even registers.
Exactly. It's so common.
It's a man in his mid-50s.
Weird that it's a bathroom story. The story he gave me was very much a bathroom story as well, so maybe it's a Justin thing.
He spends a lot of his life, yeah.
So I'm going to quickly shuffle the cards. You're going to say stop. I'm going to turn the first one over, and if it's shit, we'll move straight on. But if it gives us a great story, then why not? So whenever you're ready.
Hit me.
Right. First one. First nickname.
Probably Roger Rabbit when because my teeth, I've had 8 teeth out of my head to make space for the ones that, so I'm like an inverse Rylan. I've had teeth taken out to try and get near normality, and he's put teeth in to move as far from normality as possible.
Like Freddie Mercury had it, he like extra incisors, and he would never have them out because he thought
he was worried about the sound. Yeah.
Ew.
I had my 4 wisdom teeth out and 4 massive molars, whatever those big fuckers are called at the back, and I moved them all back, and I still look like Donkey from Shrek. But I'm no longer Roger Rabbit or Goofy, my 2 first nicknames.
Oh, I hope that didn't give any nasty flashbacks.
No, just it's the good thing about being ugly until you're about 17 is it stops you turning into one of the lads who's obsessed with getting laid and smoking weed. It kept me at Dungeons and Dragons and computer game stage because there was no pussy, so there was no point in entering puberty. So my balls didn't even bother getting hairy. Everything just slowed down. It's like, there's no point, mate. Your balls are staying like a walnut till you're about 15. It's more trouble than it's worth. The trauma of it put a puberty blocker in, a natural puberty blocker in, until I started to emerge at 17 or 18. And then girls started to think, well, yeah, he's 5'10" with the body of a pepper army, but he actually has got a personality.
And so all down to your teeth. Amazing. You see how these cards work. So, I've got to a truth no one else could have. So that school experience then, is that the source of comedy? Did comedy become a kind of a tactic or a weapon? Are you saying you weren't one of the kind of sexy cool kids?
Yes, I suppose so. It's partly that, self-defense, the genetic quirk of being born with a fast-moving brain. It's like a basketball player does need to be born tall, but he also needs to be forced to have nothing else to do in his youth except go on the basketball court, which is why not many tall, posh white people become basketball players, even though genetically they're cut out for it. So it's a mixture of having that random genetic roll of the dice, weird, funny brain with a mixture of whatever DNA's come down from a fucked up relatives, mixed with a couple of factors, not really being physically robust at school, so having to learn to defend yourself with verbal wit, not being attractive to girls based on height or anything else, so wanting to get laid and your body becoming more witty based on wanting to be popular with the girls. And thirdly, this is probably specific to our country, being born in August, an unusual and disproportionate amount of comedians are either youngest siblings or born in August. Both of those things make you the smallest person in your social milieu that will have to survive.
That is really interesting. So you know that from the circuit that a lot of August...
No, so there's statistical data on it.
Is there?
I've read it. I can't remember which book I read it in. And similar, it works in inverse as well. A disproportionate number of successful sports people are born in September and October because they're the tallest and get all the attention from the PE teacher and they're the most confident, blah-de-blah.
So that's really interesting. So the mix of nature and nurture. The nature bit then, you're talking about your weird brain, that it works fast and works quickly. So what impact does that have on like your ability to be funny and see things differently? I don't know if you can break it down.
I don't know if this thing speed correlates with humour because there's so many brilliantly slow deadpan. You can go and watch a Pinter play and be crying laughing in a pause for a minute and a half, or you could go and watch Jack D or even Jimmy Carr and just slowly forming a joke. Sometimes the slower the better. Or you can go and watch when she was alive someone like Joan Rivers or Lee Evans before he retired, or me. So I think speed is just a variable which brings a different timbre to the humour and different execution. The thing that speed can give you, particularly if it's mixed with physical performance rather than just verbal dexterity, as it is with me, it's very physical, my act. I burn about 800 to 1,000 calories, is you can, I'm doing myself injustice here, but a joke can start as an 8 out of 10 and finish as a 10 out of 10 because of physicality. And you see that back through time. Lee Evans, Max Wall, Laurel and Hardy, for example. I mean, how funny were the jokes, really? A lot funnier when Ollie gets a hammer on his head.
Yeah.
Right the way back to slapstick. But if you can do slapstick fast, it's obviously really funny. It's like a cartoon. So I'm throwing myself around like a bendy whirlwind on stage. Yeah. Elevate what might have been an 8 out of 10 joke to a 10 with the physical iteration of it as well. So speed, dexterity helps and lifts routines, but I wouldn't say it's fundamental to funny in itself.
Yeah. But what's that speed and dexterity, that energy? When did that start to become such a big part of your character and your act. I'm still thinking back at school days and the early days and teenage years.
I love my character. My daughter's like it. She's been born like it. I was just always next, board, next. Always boiling hot. Spent my whole life boiling hot. I've never switched a radiator on in a house I've lived in. I've got aircon in my house, and it runs. The air conditioning guy says you're the only person I know that runs it 12 months a year, including in the ice of January. I have 16 degrees Celsius of ice blasting into my face. Just wired fast. My daughter's the same, so it's not a male thing. And that's just a quirk of, I don't know, endocrine system or whatever. Shit just happens quickly. My mum's the same. She's still the same. So it's obviously passed down.
When did you realise that was funny?
I never realised fast was funny. I just knew I was able to quickly think of funny responses in a social setting when I was Minna's age. When I was 8, I was able to quickly be the first one in with a joke, but I never made the link of, oh, look how fast I am. I just thought, I thought of a joke there. That's good. It wasn't a literal link. It wasn't until I got on stage and started to do my first handful of gigs that I realised I'm literally the fastest delivery on the circuit, not on purpose, not a kind of drunk Red Bull and, I better go fast for a point. That's just how I'm comfortable. But I'm not like, blah, 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 even though I can be a bit like, but throwing myself on the floor, writhing around like a salted slug. It's crazy, angry delivery, just how it comes naturally out of me. So because my base level, as people can hear listening to this, is already quite, you mix that with adrenaline and not really being a natural performer, i.e. bad nerves, and I'm not really keen on standing up in front of strangers. Obviously, I'm used to it now. I suppose that's what comes out.
So what made you start doing that then, if it's not something that, if that wasn't natural, the standing up and performing and being in front, but you knew that you could make those speedy links and spot the joke and spot the thing that was funny and get that in first, how did you move from that then to actually performing?
Luck is the answer. I've been picked up a few times when I've done podcasts like this with Stephen Bartlett, and everyone wants it to be about you were born with a talent and then you put hard work on top of it. If you combine hard work with talent, that's the formula. It's not though, is it? Stop talking shit. There's millions of people out there that work their tits off and are talented and don't make it. There's one factor that no one likes to admit: fucking luck.
Of course it is.
Barefaced lottery ticket. Luck.
Right place, right time, right person
all of that.
Made a connection with.
Now, the luck factor reduces the more privileged you are born. If you're born in a council area, to me, I didn't have divorced parents, so I did have that in my favour because most people come from broken homes where I'm from or had like real bad poverty where they were missing meals, whereas I was just normal peasant. We had 3 meals on the table, chavvy holidays, but a nice council house type thing, just normal. So I didn't really, no knowledge I was going without anything ever. It's only reflecting as an idiot who's read too many books that I realised things were missing from my childhood. It never would have occurred to me until idiots started putting thoughts in my head as an adult. Never felt deprived, never felt abused. But the reality is, if your dad crawls down into cellars putting lagging on the outside of pipes and your mum cleans the skid marks from posh people's toilets, you're not going to be exposed to anything. Books, theatre, nothing. Not because parents were bad, but just because it was things that they weren't exposed to. And they're fucking knackered from doing actual work, not fake work like you and me do. So they were just so tired that come Saturday, they went out for a curry and we sat in with my nan. That was it. That's the extent of my cultural world. Maybe the only thing my mum and dad were great on were exposing me to the cuisines of the world and giving me a cultural education where I love curry, I love this, I love that, and animals. They were very liberal. You can own crickets, you can own insects, you can own mice, you can own snakes. I was exposed to all those things. And lo and behold, I did become talented and enthusiastic about those as a very young person. But everything else, I didn't even know, because I went to just a chavvy school where you just had to survive by not being bullied and try and get laid and all that. Great school, but your value systems as a working class boy is inverted, meaning you've no interest in English and maths and all that bollocks. So I fell out with 5 GCSEs A to C by a miracle, but I didn't know that Pride and Prejudice wasn't written by Oscar Wilde. I thought I didn't even know the difference between Oscar Wilde and Jane Austen at 16. I never accidentally had it switched on. I was just weed over the park, dog shit bin, chav, moron, left school laughing at the fact I got no qualifications. And I actually used to say, I want to be dead at 40. I want to just do pills, fucking get dead at 40. I don't want kids and fuck it. That's who I'm going to be. I honestly believed that was going to be my life. And I wanted it to be in a happy way.
So what happened?
So I've got this fast brain unused, like a Ferrari kept garage that I just turn on for people walking past but never drive. There I was, just split up with my first girlfriend, Anne-Marie. It was really toxic because I couldn't believe a fit bird fancied me. So when I first broke up with her, I thought I was going to die. It was like having Ebola or something, vomiting with heartbreak. I was about 18, 19. My thing was raves, getting off your tits and going raving every Saturday to Hard House. I'd still go raving, but I have to like drink vodka now. I have like organic guarana shakes because I need my brain. And this girl just came through the smoke, about an inch taller than me, model clearly, and just put her phone number in my hand. There's me, like sweaty. She knew nothing about me. I love dancing. I've always have done. Just like the way I was dancing near the speaker at this rave. Put a number in my hand, called her. Name was Zoe. Fell in love. Started having like your classic late teens, early 20s ravers romance. Just cool people in fur coats, off their tits till 5 a.m. Just a chemical romance is what I would describe it as.
Yeah.
But she happened to be middle class. So when we were going back to hers, I was staying in her leafy mansion in a beautiful village in Surrey, seeing what that side of life was like. I've obviously seen and heard of things like that. But she was a year younger than me. She was just starting uni that September 18. I was 19 at this point. I was going back to hers in halls and we were both partying with the students and sleeping in halls. And I was like having a completely different time than with my mates. I love going out with my mates, but it was going out with middle class people who spoke about things rather than telly. I was like, wow, this is really great. And then we were getting up at 10, like on my day off, because by now I was working in a watch shop like a wage slave, dragging myself in like an old man in my cheap suit for 11 grand a year, selling watches to rich people and getting jealous of rich people. Of Marxist, Dostoevsky and Raskolnikov anger. Something was bubbling. I didn't know what. And then I start banging this posh bird and fall in love with her. And then we were waking up at 10. What are you doing? We're just going to sit on the lawn and get pissed because we don't have a lecture till 3. And I was like, am I made of the same shit? Yeah, I'm Homo sapien. I'm made of meat. I'm genetically the same species. I live in the same country. I'm a white man. She's a white woman. I don't understand what the difference is here. Oh my God. It's literally the luck. And I felt the anger probably that a black person feels when they first realize their life has been different just because of their pigmentation. I went to work that day. And the only way you could have a break other than your breaks was to go to the smoking room. So I used to pretend I smoked, even though I didn't. So I used to go down there with a cigarette on. And I used to keep a journal or writing sometimes, just an appointment one. But now again, I'd write some feelings in it. And I was like, today's the day I changed my life. And I sent off for A-levels through the post for somewhere called the National Extensions College. And I did A-levels in the afternoon and in the weekdays. And I worked full time, all while living at my nan's. I'd fallen out with my parents at this point. So I was living in a housing association flat in a single room so small, I had to glue pegs to the wall to hang my clothes off. I couldn't fit a wardrobe in there. And obviously living with my alcoholic nan who went to bed in her dressing gown at 4, just a total pisshead mess. That's where I lived. And I got the fastest ever A grade from enrollment to exam in sociology, recorded up to that point. I don't know if it's been broken.
How fast?
3 months.
Wow.
And it was like a 99.9%. Of course, I'd chosen sociology because I thought, well, that sounds interesting. But as I'd started studying it, it was about accident of birth and Marxism, whether subconsciously I'd known that the two things, my anger was going to join me. So I had actual skin in the game. Marxist feminism, women, sociology, class system, structuralism, post-structuralism, Emil Durkheim. It just went in like putting a child's block in the correct shaped block. I didn't even have to try. I started building up all these index cards. And I sat the exam and it was like, with an hour to spare. I was like, why have I got an hour to spare?
Wow.
99.9% higher, AAA grades.
So it was stuff your brain was hungry for. You just absorbed it. Yeah.
And because by this point I was 20, the local uni, because I wanted to still so much of a chav, I wouldn't go anywhere that was far. I wanted to keep it real so I could still be over the park with my mates and be near my nan. But I knew I wanted to live in halls because I'd experienced a taste of it. And I wanted to go to the uni my posh girlfriend was at. So that all boiled down to Middlesex Uni, one of the shittest universities, but had one of the best degrees. You could do English, and if you were good enough, you could specialise in creative English at the end. No one else could compete with that. It was only available as a postgrad in Norwich. I got in, of course, I just sailed in. And then once I was in, I couldn't stop this fire that had been started in this Dostoevsky breakdown moment. It's like a nervous break up, I would call it. Positive nervous breakdown, if that's such a thing. So I started on this degree learning about all silly wanky things like Lacan and Michel Foucault and all the literary theory. And then I thought, shit, I don't know anything. All these posh kids, even the shit ones, have the basic grounding. So I had to start still hitting all the student parties, but waking up at 7 a.m. and I would read for 2 hours. I don't know if there's a novel by Sartre called Nausea, and there's a character in it called the autodidact, and he learns all of his stuff just by going through A to Z through the library. Yeah. And I thought, well, that's good enough for me. So I just started with A and I would speed read. And I went all the way through from Austen to Zola, and then I would start again, doing all of this while studying the text I was supposed to be studying.
Wow.
But then the thing that I really noticed was that I had an issue with, and the first book I read was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, not on my syllabus, no plans to study Austen. I thought I need to read Austen, all of it, over the next 3 years. I need to read most of Dickens. I'd have audiobooks running when I was walking or travelling or cleaning or whatever. So I was never, ever just resting.
Why was that? Was that just
to catch up? I've got to catch up on the whole canon that these fuckers have been learning since they were 11. I'm 21, decade behind. I knew most people are lazy, so I knew I could easily catch them in 3 years working like a psycho. But what happened was, I opened Jane Austen, fucking page 1, the blah, 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 the most impudent encounter, didn't know what the word impudent meant. Never seen it, never heard it, no one's told it to me. I can't at 21 go, excuse me, what does the word impudent mean? Now, there was internet, but you had to queue at the library, and obviously I couldn't afford it. I didn't have that level of budget. So I needed a system urgently. So I treated myself to 2 of my favourite books. Where are they? The Shorter Oxford. So it's all the words in 2 volumes.
Yeah.
I would look up the word. This was my rule. Every time I encountered a new word in the wild that was a real English word I would need to know the meaning of to become middle class, I kept these little 10 by thingy index cards. I would write impudent down. But now you have a problem. There was no speech demonstration of dictionary definitions at this point online. How's that word pronounced? You can't ask someone without looking common. Is it impudent, impudent, impudent? No one knows. So I had to teach myself, took me 2 days, the diacritic alphabet. So I could read, I was so embarrassed, this was all secret. So I could read, that writes like that, impudent, with a little accent over the I, which is quite unusual. I'll never forget it, because I never would have guessed impudent. Impudent is how most Brits would encounter that word. And then I had to learn its cognates. Impudently, impudence. And then I'd write the cognates and things at the top, and then I would write a really easy definition. And that became card 1. And then, of course, 5 minutes later, I'd forget what impudent meant. So I'd go, oh, yeah, of course it meant bold or slightly
Had it ever happened to you, though, that you'd said it in the wrong way, you'd got the wrong pronunciation?
No, because I didn't know it.
By it?
How could I?
So you just wouldn't use it?
It was unused. It was unknown. So I couldn't choose to not use it as I didn't yet know it. So I started building these cards up. I ended up with thousands. And when I was on the toilet, I'd be like, impudent blood. And once I knew them, where I was like, I would file the card. I burnt all the cards out of shame. I wish I'd kept them. They'd been great for my daughter.
Yeah.
I burnt them. I was so embarrassed. And eventually, I didn't know who Russell Brand was at this point, but in a non-display way, sometimes I would go, the behaviour of that character is impudent. I was like, oh my God, it just came out. And once they started coming out naturally, I knew they were lodged.
Yeah.
Like even the word capricious I just used then, it's unfathomable to me. That used to be a foreign thing that I did not understand.
Yeah.
Words that I use every day now. And I can tell when I learn them, because when I'm using normal language, I'm common, like with an Essex accent. But when it's a word I learned at university, capricious, I will pronounce it properly.
And it does stick with you, doesn't it? When you get it wrong, it just made me flash back to primary school. And I was reading a certain section, and I was reading about this character who'd clearly been driven somewhere by a driver who I'd called a chauffeur, and I'd read it out and you just see the word, it was chauffeur. But the fact that I remember that as one of the few things I do remember from primary school means it does stick with you. If you, it's the shame.
Great learning tool, Shane.
Yeah.
So of course I call everyone up, but rather than just catch people up, my enthusiasm, the tutors had never seen anything like it. Not maybe if I'd been 40, it would have been slightly more calm down, mature student. But because I was just old enough, I was still fucking partying with everyone. But just that 2 years older made a massive difference. Of course, I just started getting first on this module, first on that module, first. Scooped off to do the creative one. Really hard to get a first on. And I just got first. I was the only first awarded. I won the Eden Ravencroft's Pride. They make the posh hats for Oxford twats. I won that for academic excellence. And I've been like it ever since, with everything I touch. Mastermind, right, I'm going to win. I'm going to do Evelyn Waugh and I'm going to fucking win. I'm not going to get a question wrong. I'm going to learn everything and every word Evelyn Waugh's ever written. And of course I did. I've got a series about Evelyn Waugh about to come on Radio 4 next year.
Have you?
Making a series about this guy who I knew nothing about. And when Mastermind came to me, they were like, is there anyone you'd like to learn? I said, well, I've always fancied reading more Evelyn Waugh. I'm going to see if I can learn all of it by the record.
You talk about luck, though. You were saying, obviously, so much of it is luck, which we both agree and both know.
But if I'd never met Zoe, I never would have done it.
Yeah, but that's true. But then look at all that work that you did, that, of course, that nobody else does.
Luck, talent, work. You need all three. You do need all three. Work is 95%. Talent is 4%. But 99 is not a complete formula. You'll get fucking nowhere with 99%. You need 1% luck.
So interesting and so true.
And that luck becomes more, the more female and the more black, the more Muslim you are, the more luck you need.
Okay, time for a quick break. This is the part of the show where I issue you with a Fist of First challenge card. So I'm going to shuffle the cards, turn a card over. Your challenge for this week is first nightmare you remember having. So if you've got a good story for that Fist of First challenge card, email me in at fistofirsts@gmail.com and I'll read out the best, the funniest, the most bizarre in next week's episode. Then obviously clearly thrived to an unbelievable degree as you went through that degree and then the rest of your education. The link there, though, from comedy.
Yeah.
Was there a link at that point? Were you being funny at that point? So no.
Yes, I've been funny. I've been practicing this skill my whole life, saying something funny really quickly and everyone thinking I'm a legend. So I went from school where I was a dweeb that couldn't get laid to the most popular guy. University, people fucking loved me.
Yeah.
The female attention was unreal. I was with Zoe at the time, but I could have, had I been single, my bedpost would have gone up to fucking Olympus. But I happened to be at the one uni that did not have stand-up in the student union. Just freak bad luck. So I went all 3 years, still never seen stand-up. As far as I was concerned, it was something my dad laughed at where they told jokes about black people and it was fat white men like Bernard Manning. Didn't have a judgment at that point because I didn't even have an opinion because I was so uninterested. I just knew it was something that wasn't for me. Cool, so I got spat out of uni with a first in not just English, but creative writing and an ability to use commercial language creatively. Fucking hell, it's like a queue of ad agencies waiting for me.
Yeah.
I walked straight into the first one with the best offer. I was on, this is 2001, maybe by now. I was on 35 grand a year within 6 months of leaving uni. Not doing science or doing trading on the stock floor, coming up with headlines and creative sentences on purple couches. I was a prodigy of being able to go, we've got Whisper chocolate bar, we've got Trini and Susanna, what's the campaign? And I would just go, close my eyes and go, this is the campaign, this is the headline, this is how it looks. And the client would go, over and over again. So we were making a lot of money. So I went from £100 a week travel card allowance to 35 grand a year in months.
Yeah. So you were a copywriter within the creative department of an ad agency.
And of course, every fucker is, should we go and watch stand-up? I'm going to see the new Shakespeare. What's your favourite type of hummus? Everything was middle class. So I learned all these. My life just became middle class overnight. And of course, I went to see stand-up after people at work that were like, you should do stand-up. You're so funny. You should do stand-up. I didn't even know it was a thing. I watched it and I was like, I'm definitely as funny or funnier than that. And so I went online. It was August 2003. I went online, Googled stand-up comedy London and clicked the first link, Comedy Cafe, phoned them. So how do you try it then? He went, well, all the comedians are in Edinburgh at the moment. I was like, what's that? I thought that was ballet and books and shit. And he was like, no, it's a fringe festival. I sort of vaguely heard of it, but of course, why would I turn my head and concentrate? I mean, I was interested in books and writing and advertising and words, not being on stage. I'd done a bit of drama and bit part Grange Hill when I was a kid, but loads of people at my school did. I'd always shown that tendency to want to be in the school play, but not in a serious way. And he went, we've got a gap really soon. Do you want to try it? I went, yeah, all right. And that was it. It was that. Just fuck it, like a bungee jump. Why not? What have I got to lose? And the creative planner, Stephen Workman, was like, you need to do it, mate. You'd be a fucking great stand-up. You'd be great. And I just went and did it. And it was, instead of being shit or amazing, it was somewhere in between, which apparently is unheard of for your first gig. it was about a sort of 6 out of 10, whereas what you should really do is not know what you're doing and die on your hole.
Yeah.
I did it and I thought, I've got no interest in doing something I'm not fucking amazing at, because I'm fucking amazing at advertising and language. I found my thing. I'm a peasant. Do not rock the fucking boat. You're not a peasant. Don't go pissing about with ego and become a peasant again. So I thought, I've got no interest in doing something I'm 6 out of 10. When I'm 10 out of 10 is something I fucking love it. I still love it now. I've started another business. I'm working in marketing and advertising at the moment again. So I booked in a second one for the second night because I've been told to do it twice because you can't judge it from the first time. And I thought, I'll fuck that off. But the comedian I was with on the first night went, please do it. I'm doing that one tomorrow. I'll do it with you. Just do it one more time. You've got something. And I went on the second night and smashed it, which is unheard of. And I thought, shit, I'll try that a third time then. And I went on a third time and something told me that this high energy stuff I've been doing, to go with it to a cartoon absurd degree and see what happened, like hanging off the curtain, just let it all come out. And I absolutely took the roof off on my third gig. And it was like someone went, this is what you're supposed to do.
That's amazing.
Like feeling heroin. And I remember the adverts when I was little, you'll try heroin, you'll be sick the first time, but you'll come back to more and it will take your life. And sure enough, I was throwing up, I was shitting because I wasn't a performer. I fucking hated the nerves. Started splitting up with my girlfriend. My work started to suffer. I lost weight. I missed a mortgage payment. I became a junkie, driving up and down the country for no money, and eventually I lost my job.
Impossible. So I spent 15 years in advertising. I ended up, my last 5-6 years was in the creative team. As a copywriter, I used to write ads for Durex, so knob gags was my job before I got into comedy. The interesting parallel, though, as you talk, to be that brilliant as a comedy writer and to have the natural ability to kind of go, okay, that's the problem, this is the opportunity, these are the words, this is the idea, is such a similar process, I think, to comedy, in that you're looking for that insightful truth and a surprising way of expressing that truth in as simple a way as possible. And that's really what I think a lot of comedy, certainly from a comedy writing point of view, is. It's about spotting the truth, but expressing it in a way that people go, oh God, yeah, that's true. But I've never thought of it like that before, in a simple way that connects. So that parallel between what found you were naturally brilliant at, and then discovering a craft and a way of doing that on stage. Did it occur to you that it was a similar thing, a similar mindset or brain?
Yeah, well, not so much the coming up with the jokes, because I've been doing those my whole life. So I knew how to just go, tin of beans, and I can just do 5 minutes on a tin of beans if you want.
Yeah.
So I knew I had the speed, I knew I had all that. The things that helped me for both my advertising and the degree I'd done, because to get a first, you had to produce a creative piece, but you had to do 10,000 words, drawing on all the theory you'd learned, critiquing your own writing, picking it apart.
Yeah.
That's an extraordinary thing to go through at degree level. And then to go into a job where you can be locked in a room the whole weekend, miss your birthday, and your creative director goes, I don't like that, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
And to stop feeling emotion after 2-3 years, because I did it for 5 years. So after the first year, you're like, shit, I just want to get home, just in the bin, let's do something else.
Yeah.
And then when I went on, I noticed when I was with other comedians, they went, I'm going to try this routine. And it would go flat and they go, oh, it didn't work. I'd be like, who gives a fuck? Next. So what copywriting, my degree taught me, and even more so advertising taught me, was not just brevity and the ability to come up with the right idea in the right moment, like you were saying, but the ability to literally not give a shit when a joke doesn't work, to enjoy a joke not working, because it means, great, I can write another one. Yeah. And just to have, I've got a new Edinburgh, how will I think up a show? You'll go to work, cunt, and you'll write it just like you did advertising, and it won't be an issue. What are you, a fucking... Who the fuck do you think you are to sit in your ivory tower with a quill going, oh, Thespis, send me some words, you fucking pussy. Sit down at your desk, type 9 to 5 like you were stacking shelves, and get it fucking done. That's how you're trained as a copywriter, because if you don't, you're sacked. So it wasn't so much that I conceptually realised it's the same mechanism. It was in an Anthony Trollope, one of my favourite author, who was basically cancelled when he published his autobiography, Anthony Trollope. It's one of my favourite books. It's because everyone was like, how do you write? And Dickens was like, the characters talk to me and I describe them. And everyone's like, oh, Dickens, you're magic. And then Trollope, who was as popular at Dickens at the time, people forget. They went, how do you write? He went, I press a bell, ding, I write 1,000 words, ding, I go to work for 7 hours, I edit in the evening, I publish it, here's a chart of how much I earn per word and my targets. And everyone was like, oh, you must be a shit author then.
Just because he got a process.
Because he didn't fuck about with Ivory Tower and creative vapours and all that fucking magical voodoo bollocks, which is just used to suck the dick of people that were spoilt as children, right? It's a job, like making a shoe. Yeah. It's just that my shoes make people laugh and I fucking love my product and I take great pride in it and the emotional connection I have with the audience, but ultimately it's something I make. So copywriting taught me that. But what it really handed me was, I'm worried about moving my laptop and the wires coming out, is that shelf of awards over there. Because once I got up to Edinburgh, there was loads of fuckers like me that could turn a show out, as well as lots of brilliant creative vapors people turning out great shows. But what no one had the ability to do was get their 50 minutes funniest jokes with no link, like I could get Cadbury's chocolate bar and Formula One Days Out, and make them really fit with a fake ass concept that I've reverse engineered to give the appearance of structure. That's literally what I was paid to do for 5 years. I've got a funny idea that doesn't fit. How can I pretend it was intrinsic all along? I know. So Russell shows, oh my God, how do you write such a structure? I don't, you silly cunt. I just go, there's all the shit I've got. How can I weave scaffolding around it? Then at the last minute, late July, before I go to Edinburgh, I pull the scaffolding away. And by pulling the scaffolding away, what I mean is I pull, in the previews, I would use lots of longhand. So this show's called The Theory of Pretension. What do we mean by pretension? Well, I'd pull all those words away and I would just do the show with the minimum to make it seem like it's interrogating the notion of pretension itself. Boom, nominated for the newcomer.
So that's the kind of process then that you kind of build it and then carve it away a bit.
Yeah, instead of going, what do I want a show to be about this year? I'm like, what have I got?
Yeah.
And looking at it, is there anything running through it? Even the tiniest, most pathetic, tangential, tendentious link, 2 words from cards there, that would link it. And then I think of a funny word and then I put in a bit at the beginning and a bit at the end that let off the emotions. I tried to make the audience cry at the end of the show. I realised, like emotion, by saying something really real, really feel, being really vulnerable on stage, but link that to something they were crying, laughing at the beginning. And that's my formula.
Do you use that same formula kind of every time and not just every show? But the other thing you do so often, so in between all of the big shows, is all the online caning stuff you do, where I'm caning this, caning that. Is that a different process? Is that just a quick, or is it the same kind of structure when you're just putting it together quickly? Yeah,
well, I think structural process is different to material process. So what we were talking about then is all the stuff that I've come up with over the year, which we don't yet know how I've come up with because I haven't told you. And I'm like, what is the structural process to hang those together? I don't need to worry about those structure so much with 1 minute bursts. The most I need to worry about is maybe something that I'm known for, like going car without swearing at the end, or saying the same word at the beginning to give satisfying closure, which an 8-year-old will do naturally. So I don't need to stress too much about structure. So far as, well, how do you generate the actual jokes then? So for my show, all I do is every time something funny happens or I make Lindsay laugh or something funny happens when I'm out, I put a bullet point down. I never, ever write longhand. And then in the preview process, normally about 20 to 30 shows where people pay a $5 each, I'll look at it, right, the bullet point will just say Lindsay losing her temper at Ibiza pool party. There won't be anything else written down. And I will tell that story to the audience with no thoughts of punchlines. I don't lower myself to anything like that. Tell it as though they were my mate down the pub. You're never going to guess what happened with Lindsay. And just tell it. And a natural, in a Darwinian way, the funny bits start to emerge. And normally a Darwinian punchline emerges that I never, ever intended to be a punchline. It was just something Lindsay or the other character in the story genuinely said. I tell it enough times. But it never, ever, if I was to pass away and people were to try and perform my show, you won't find anything more than Ibiza pool story. It doesn't exist anywhere other than in here. And what that gives me is different wording every time I tell it. So it never fully grows. So I'm like the opposite of Jimmy Carr, who has everything has to be perfect to make the joke fire. So that's how I come up with my stuff for the big shows. So far as, let's take, for example, Keir Starmer's winter fuel allowance, which is my latest one I've done. It's done 1.1 million on Facebook. It's done 250,000 on Instagram, and it's done about 150. So it's done about 2 million across my channels. How did I write that? I don't. What I do is I just think of something that's normally these days, actually it's Lindsay going, you should do something about the fuel allowance. And I literally, as I'm setting my camera up, try to bring to the front of my mind a funny thing I might say about it. Like pensioners, I didn't use this, being cooked and eating themselves. So instead of going to food banks, and it would all, as they're burning their own flesh, they would heat that, and then that could have been the one I went with. I don't know what I went with in the end. I don't even remember what I've put online. All I know is it's been very successful. I don't even write that down. I hold it loosely in my head, and I turn on my camera and I count myself in. And the adrenaline, I've told myself, you're not allowed to have a second take, and the most you'll be allowed in CapCut in the edit is to cut out stutters.
Wow.
That adrenaline puts a pseudo audience in my mind's eye, even though I'm not live, I'm recording in a dressing room, and I just start speaking. And just like I would never trip up on stage if I was improvising, 90% of what you see Goes Canings are first take, no edit, straight through. If you ever see me go, it's where I'm trying to get it down under a minute for algorithmic reasons. So I've snipped out breaths. Or a bit of phatic, another word from another card, a bit of phatic speech. Like, it's like I'm saying, I might snip that out.
Yeah.
But very rarely, if you looked at the raws, is it me going, I'll have another go at that? Never, ever.
So that's to create that sense of being live and performing live so that you get the same energy and adrenaline rush, no? No, because for the first 3 years I did Canings, and I was the first one to do it on the planet. Obviously, lockdown changed all that. The first one, not to sit back and be funny in a chair and be a stand-up, but to go, right, I'm going to pretend there's an audience, I'm going to stand up and perform as though an audience had not really been done, not even by the TikTokers and all that. And I was recording for 5 minutes with lots of, right, let's have another go. Loads of it. The raws were sometimes 7 minutes long, but it still created the effect you just described. Yeah.
The reason I do it like that is not to create the effect you just described, which can easily be created with a raw of 7 minutes cut down to 1 minute. Yeah. What I noticed was it forces me to write in the moment. It's what makes me think of the jokes.
Yes. So that's your way of getting to the bit of your brain you need.
But it took me 3 years to discover that by accident. For the first 3 years, I was writing it down first and going with the strongest joke. They probably are slightly more successful, those ones, to be fair to myself. They're going to be, because it's a Darwinian best of 4 jokes. But as I've got more lazy and more cocky, sometimes I'll go, right, Mike will go over a rave, and I won't write anything down. I'll just put it on and see I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth.
It is amazing. One of the idea generation techniques I use when I'm training people is random links to do the same thing. It's like you don't know what's coming yet, and it's a way of getting like into your subconscious, almost is how I frame it. It's a way of getting to that bit of your brain that if you don't, you won't get such surprising original material. That's incredible to hear.
It forces creation. And then you can imagine, without meaning to well, my tickets are quite reasonably priced anyway, but without what I mean to think people aren't getting value for money, I then realised, fuck, would that work for my proper material where I'm charging people money? Guess what? It fucking does. So before, about 5 years ago, I would say Lindsay at the pool party, and then I would have like 5 bullets underneath that I would hit. Now I don't even bother with that, because it forces more creation if I go on naked.
Yeah.
I still need the idea and that I know is going to be a funny story.
So how long ago did you fine-tune that process then, that way of thinking?
During lockdown. So I started doing Canings in 2018, and during lockdown, where I wanted to turn things around quickly. So by accident, I discovered it. So Boris would make an announcement at 9, and the announcement would finish at 9:10, and my shit would be up, fully formed, with gags 3 minutes long by 9:15. Wow. So to get to creation, edit and post in 5 minutes, you need to be able to get it out first take in 2.5. And I kept being able to do it. I was like, why have I not tried that before? Just never tried it. I thought I would stutter or something. But what it was, just like I didn't stutter when I was doing my Zoom gigs, I didn't stutter when I saw this green light, because my brain was imagining an audience that wasn't there. It's made creating new shows easier and more dynamic as well.
Yeah. That's not something you could necessarily teach people to be able to think like that, because they need your brain.
I could teach them to try it and see what happens, though. I think a lot of stand-ups and creatives would be scared of trying it.
Yeah.
But what have you got to lose if it's just you standing in front of a camera at home? I bet you a lot of people haven't even tried to do that.
Yeah.
Switch your camera on and go, right, no, take like one of your cards. It's going to be routine about glasses, spectacles. Go. And just start talking, see what happens. No one's watching. It's just you.
Yeah.
But it's the cringe of knowing that you're going to watch that back in 5 minutes tricks you into feeling like you're on stage at a comedy club. Your own ego.
Look, I'm very conscious you've got to get to Salisbury. So just quickly, Pet Selector, where did the idea for that come?
We were getting a ragdoll cat, and my daughter said, what are ragdolls like? So I went to she's like me, just obsessed with flicking through dog and cat breed books and looking at all the different histories. What's this one? It's a Norwich Terrier, and we'd get all into the coat patterns. So I bought her the kids one for her, the National Geographic, but it was still very dry. The ragdoll was a genetic mutation. And I was translating it into funny for her, going, imagine your mate who just has one fruit shoot and then he's out for the count at the play area and nothing bothers him. He's like the opposite of your friend that gets upset. I've got to wear ear defenders. And she was crying, laughing.
Yeah.
And so I had a meeting with the publisher that afternoon about children's book ideas. That was not on the agenda. And I told her about that. And she went, that's the book. And so what I realised was it was a translation job, really. Because all I had to do was go to the breeders, the GCCF, the Kennel Club, and the existing and extant breed information and translate it into funny. Piece of piss.
Yeah.
Long, fiddly and slow, but easy.
Yeah, and so effective then, because like you say, if it's not been done before and all you got is this dry adult explanation of the difference, but suddenly you've made it funny and accessible.
Yeah, so so far as selecting the breeds, some people are like, why have you done Scottish Fold? That's a wicked breed. Well, A, you get a Scottish Straight that doesn't have the bent ears and so it doesn't have the complications. And B, I've just gone with the 20 most popular breeds in the UK and the US at the moment because this is my cynical commercial one, my brain thought. One audience is people that are selecting a pet and the other audience are people that are going to buy that who've already got pets. We've got a cockapoo, let's read Cocker Spaniel and Poodle together at bedtime. So I've made very careful to write each page like a short story that can be enjoyed on its own. And indeed, that's how my daughter enjoys the book.
Yeah.
So it's got a narrative use, an actual selection of pet use, and a sort of narcissistic, let's read about the pets we've already got use.
And for that third use, is Boxers in there? Have you got Boxers?
It's in there.
Oh, amazing. So I'm getting it.
It's in there.
I would have anyway, but...
I should probably put a plug in for BBC Radio 4 Evil Genius, which is coming back 24 episodes a freaking year. So my brain's just fucked. Before I connected with you, I was learning about Edgar Hoover, Simone de Beauvoir, fucking J.D. Rockefeller and Lady Macbeth all at the same time in the same workout in the gym.
Oh, and amazing to have that back. Again, my wife got me into that. It was her favourite podcast. So yeah, she got me into that, and it is an incredible.
I'm lucky that Radio 4 took it. I'm lucky because it was the sounds, and once Radio 4 get behind you, it's like rocket fuel, you know.
So yeah, listeners' questions. I've picked these two. This is from Tracy Lee in Warwick. She says, "What made you change from the fun punk look to the more subdued man about town look?"
My wife, Lindsay.
Ah, yeah, it's always a woman.
My natural look is still age-inappropriate cunt.
Yeah.
But what I did was get rid of all the eyeliner and all that shite because my missus just said, you're a good-looking lad, you look like a bellend, what are you doing? And it was like, I was told to.
Yeah. Well, that's a good answer. So Stuart, this is Stuart in Kent, so your neck of the woods. He says, how do you rate OAPs as an audience? And he PS's it with saying he just saw you at Haythrock Park.
Oh, my God, I know what he's talking about. See, this is what happened. Someone told me you're being booked for a festival, fees decent, Haythrock Park, sponsored by Radio Times, and I didn't listen. Once I'd heard sponsored by Radio Times, I just assumed Radio Times was like a fucking cool app that scanned your face and go, how about these suggestions using AI? But it's still a wonderful magazine read by nearly 1 million people. But the thing is, people with a magazine on their table looking at them, there was a clue there that I didn't listen to. And of course, when I got there, it wasn't a festival at all. It was just a theatre in a Warner hotel. And there was someone who was 49 that I clung to like the fountain of youth, but everyone else was 70 plus. Gigs were great. Of course they were, because you can't offend old people. It's people aged 18 to 25 who get triggered and have to get covered in soy yogurt because they're pussies.
Yeah. And then the last thing, so it's all been about first and stuff, but I'd like to finish with the last act you saw or last act you discovered that blew you away. So a comedy recommendation, basically.
oh God, I don't want to recommend this person because they'll then do a routine about me and make fun of me. But I do love Stuart Lee. I do. Yeah. He's even ripped her piss out of me and talked about thinking I'm shit on stage. And it was such a good routine. I even enjoyed that.
I know they say he's the comedian's comedian, but he's very funny as well as being very clever.
The one on Sky at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm about to watch it for the third. I don't watch stand-up. It doesn't really make me laugh. Lee Mack was probably the stand-up that changed me and gave me the last bits of skill I was missing physically, and he taught me a few technical things. But to actually laugh, Paul Chowdhury is one. Don't know why, just makes me laugh, like properly laugh. And Stuart Lee, we have to pause. We have to pause it.
Yeah.
And some people just don't get it, but for me, when he's doing that routine about the last routine, when he's describing someone's week and the next day, or when he's talking about, he's making fun of people like me who recommend Stuart Lee. Once you've seen Lee, Stuart Lee, and he goes on until he's just a noise, and I can't.
Yeah, but there's an element of that you do clearly in terms of the performance and the musicality of the performance that you both have that is so funny.
Yeah. Repetition as well is. I love his use, and I use repetition as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I'm going to have to run. I'm really sorry.
We've done. Thank you so much. What a pleasure. I know I say it after every episode, but I could have chatted to Russell for hours. There were so many useful creativity techniques in there. For me, I'll take away right in the moment. Just use a bullet point, one headline message. Hold it loosely in your head and then let it all out without ever overwriting or preparing. It's amazing how he does those canings. And he was saying he does it all in one take. It was just astounding to listen to how he explained how he did it and why he doesn't over-prepare. I think we can all learn from that. He talked about the importance of self-care, keeping a healthy mind and body, and of course that's so important when we want to stay sharp and creative. And Russell talked with some forcefulness about how important it is to have a work ethic, a discipline and determination to work hard at your writing, your craft, and how that accounts for 95% of the work, with talent and luck making up the rest. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star review, tell your friends, and do subscribe to my email newsletter for exclusive Fist of Firsts news and features, and much, much more. Link in my bios. See you next time. Thanks for listening.